Hi, everybody. I'm Dave McClelland with Frank Farino at Ontario Motor Speedway for the 1976 NHRA World Finals. This is actually two events in one. The World Finals conducted here today, plus the conclusion of the 1976 World Championship Series, a 43-race series throughout the United States and Canada. I guess, Frank, you've been in the pits and on the World Championship level. Pro Stock's where the excitement is.
Yeah, because it's not yet decided. Larry Lombardo was very, very close to it, but then again, so is Warren Johnson. They meet in the first round, could be decided right there.
That's not the story in Funny Car, though.
Not at all. Don Perdomo has come here with the championship. I believe he only lost one event, the U.S. Nationals. He says the pressure's not on him, but you know the Snake.
I know the Snake, and the Snake wants that $18,000 that's up for winner of Funny Car here at the World Finals. In Top Fuel, Frank Bradley has a mathematical chance of catching Richard Tharp, the points leader, but the story really centers around Shirley Muldowney of Mount Clemens, Michigan, who is the low qualifier, and in qualifying Saturday, recorded the second fastest speed ever in the history of drag racing. Shirley, winner of the 1976 Spring Nationals event, out to prove that she is definitely a winner, and here 5.77 seconds, her speed 249.30 miles an hour.
But that's not good enough for Shirley. She says she's going to break the 250-mile-an-hour barrier, and she feels she can do it.
Well, this is the place to do it. This is the world's fastest drag strip, Ontario Motor Speedway, and the best cars in the country throughout the world are here for this World Finals. We'll see some great action in all the categories. We'll start things off today with Top Fuel Eliminator. The first pair of cars we see, Tom Kaiser and John Rodak.
Boy, there they are. You know, no matter how many of these events we cover, I still get excited first time I see those and hear those cars.
I tell you one thing, Frank, this is one of the greatest races of all time with the best cars in the country. John Rodak, here's Tom Kaiser out of Lakewood, Colorado.
You call him, I'm going down to the pits.
We'll see you soon. First race, Top Fuel Eliminator, first round. John Rodak from Seal Beach, California is on the near side. Tom Kaiser out of Lakewood, Colorado. A great race at the finish line by about a half a car length. John Rodak, 6.19 seconds. The losing time, 6.24. Very close racing, the first race of Top Fuel Eliminator. Here in the Lidke and Zeller car is Stan Shiroma, also from Seal Beach, California. His competitor hails from Arcadia, California, and is Ray Stutz in the Hibbert and McCarthy car. Both these cars and the John Rodak car using the new Rodak engine, an aluminum replica of a Chevrolet engine used exclusively for drag racing. Stan Shiroma with a big lead, and he carries it all the way through. 6.35 seconds, smoking out a piston or two there at the finish line. 231 miles an hour. There'll be some work in the pits for the Lidke and Zeller crew with Stan Shiroma driving. Here in slow motion, you see him building a big lead right off the starting line over Ray Stutz. And Shiroma holds on for an easy win at the finish. 6.35 seconds to a 6.43. NHRA starter Buster Couch watching the next pair coming up to the starting line, and this is one of the very important races in Top Fuel Eliminator, as this man, Frank Bradley, has a chance to win Top Fuel Eliminator World Championship title. A mathematical possibility. He's got to win all the races, the entire event, plus set records both ET and mile an hour. His competitor is Pat Dakin, driving this race for Mike Cool. Cool from Torrance, California. Dakin himself hailing from Dayton, Ohio. Both cars staged. Taking a look at the drivers as they concentrate on the start. Side by side, it's Dakin through the finish line first by a half a car length, putting Frank Bradley out of competition. And that means it is Richard Tharp, the driver for the Candies and Hughes Top Fuel dragster, your Top Fuel World Champion for 1976. Dakin holding on wire to wire for the victory. And you see him there by about a half a car length over Frank Bradley. Here's Bob Struckness out of Minot, North Dakota. His competition, Jerry Ruth from Seattle, Washington. Top Fuel dragsters a pair, both powered by Keith Black aluminum racing engines. Staging very carefully in the electronic starting system, both drivers concentrating on the start. And leaving side by side, Jerry Ruth pulls out about a one-car length victory. His elapsed time, 6.05 seconds. A fine run for Jerry Ruth from Seattle, Washington. We'll take a look at this one again in slow motion. You can see them leave the starting line together. And it's Jerry Ruth pulling it out at 230 miles an hour over Bob Struckness. This is the final event of the 1976 championship season, and what more fitting place to draw the year to a close than Ontario Motor Speedway. If you've never been to the Big O, it is truly something to see. Before qualifying started and before the crowds came in, Frank had a chance to take a little tour.
OMS, the Ontario Motor Speedway, first opened for business back in 1970. It sits about an hour's drive east of Los Angeles, California, about halfway toward the desert community of Palm Springs. This track was built to accommodate Indy-type cars on its oval and Formula One cars on its road course. For this NHRA World Finals, the start line for the dragsters sits back there over my shoulder, back toward that timing tower. That is the timing tower for the NHRA event. The starting line is just forward of that tower. They come down this quarter-mile track here, and right in front of the grandstands here is actually the finish line for the dragsters. It's the start-finish line for the Indy-type cars on the oval. The drag racers say that this is the fastest track anywhere. But for all the appeal this track has to the racers, this is really a spectator's dream come true. I'll be back a bit later to show you how plush it is and how unique it is. But right now, back to Dave and more action.
Frank, not only is this a spectator's track, but it's also a spectator's race, this World Finals. Here's John Wiebe from Newton, Kansas. His competition, Hank Johnson from Marysville, Washington. Coming from all over the country and Canada for this World Finals event. John Wiebe is on the near lane, Hank Johnson in the far lane. And it looks like Hank Johnson pulling a bit of a lead, and a big lead it is, as the finish line camera records Hank Johnson 6.02 seconds, 236 miles an hour. His speed at the finish line. In slow motion, you see Hank Johnson pulling away from the very start from John Wiebe. Obviously, Wiebe having some problems. His elapsed time only 6.22 seconds, 0.2 of a second slower than Hank Johnson. And here, the man that has won the $25,000 season-end bonus money as the 1976 world champion in Top Fuel Eliminator, Candies and Hughes dragster, Richard Tharp, the driver from Dallas, Texas. His competition, James Warren from Bakersfield, California, the Ridge Route Terriers. You know, no matter how much pressure there is, James Warren always seems to remain very calm. Told Frank the one reason for this, his crew chief, Roger Coburn.
You know, he don't want to make no bonsai run. It's not safe, you don't run, so I don't have much to worry about. All I do is worry about leaving the line, and he takes care of the rest of it.
And leave the line he did. James Warren building a lead over Richard Tharp. And the supercharger exploding off of Richard Tharp's car. You see it bouncing down the track behind James Warren's dragster. The supercharger rolling into view now, coming to a rest. And Richard Tharp coasting off the track. James Warren taking the win. Let's watch and see if we can see where it comes off. It looks like just before the finish line. Warren with a big lead. And into the traps, and there goes the supercharger right at the finish line. Richard Tharp losing this race, but winning the World Championship. Here's Terry Kapp. He's from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and there is the low qualifier, Shirley Muldowney from Mount Clemens, Michigan, 5.77 seconds in qualifying, the second fastest speed ever recorded in drag racing at 249.30 miles an hour. Terry's got his hands full here. The number one qualifier is Shirley Muldowney, and she is one of the toughest competitors anywhere in drag racing. A perfect example of why Shirley Muldowney recording a 5.99 second elapsed time. Her speed 245 miles an hour for Shirley Muldowney. The final race of the first round in Top Fuel Eliminator. Gaines Markley from Federal Way, Washington, doing a burnout. Every one of these cars does burnouts just like this to heat up the tires, to get them as sticky as possible. The motor's producing nearly 2,000 horsepower, and you need to heat the tires. You can watch them grow here as they spin in the water, and then they start to burn and smoke. Again, the purpose to get them clean and to get them nice and hot. The competition for Gaines Markley comes from Concord, California, and this a brand new car for Dennis Baca. This is one of the best efforts ever for Baca. He qualified very well into the field, and here in the first round of Top Fuel at the World Finals is pitted against Gaines Markley from Federal Way, Washington. Here's Dennis Baca, Gaines Markley in the near lane, and it's a red light start for Gaines Markley, giving the win automatically to Dennis Baca, but he doesn't shut it off early, 5.99 seconds. His speed 213.77 miles an hour. Dennis Baca advancing into round number 2. Earlier, Frank was down on the starting line and talked with the president of the National Hot Rod Association, Wally Parks.
Started out in February, not too far from here in Pomona, California, with the Winter Nationals. We're here in Ontario, California, to culminate a fantastic championship drag racing season with the National Hot Rod Association with the World Finals. Let's talk to Wally Parks, president of the NHRA, and find out how he assesses the season. Wally, you've got to be super happy about this year.
Well, Frank, I have to say that this has been the most successful season that we've ever had in our drag racing history, if for no other reason than it's the first time that we've ever had 100% success in having good weather at every one of our major national meets. In addition to that, the fact that we have every single one of our division champions in the sportsman categories qualified to run, and here is a highlight that none of us ever dreamed of.
I guess the Ontario track has got to be a beautiful place to end this fantastic season.
It is. It's a hardship on the eastern racers who have to travel a long way to get here, but I think it's compensated for, particularly by the ones that are qualified and eligible to run, because it is an excellent surface, probably the best in the country, and because of the magnitude of the facility.
Wally, let's hope 77 is even better than 76.
I don't know how it can be, but I'm hoping for it.
Wally Parks, president of the NHRA, and we'll be back with more right after this.
The 1976 Pro Stock World Championship boiled down to one race in the first round of racing here at Ontario Motor Speedway in the World Finals. It pitted Larry Lombardo and Bill Jenkins' car against Warren Johnson. They had raced the whole year long, separated by just a few hundred points as they came into this race, but a driving job by Larry Lombardo in round number 1 won the race for him over Warren Johnson. We see here it was only a matter of inches at the finish line as Larry Lombardo defeated Warren Johnson, winning the Pro Stock World Championship. Frank's down in the pits with Larry right now.
Well, Larry, you've locked it in, but the meet's not over, and now kind of anticlimactic. You've got to go out and still run.
Yeah, I got 3 more rounds to go. We're not looking real good as far as power, but we're working on it right now. I found out a few things when I run, which I think go a little bit faster, a little bit quicker. It might be enough to win the race, but I came to win the World Championship, and I won that, and that's the biggest thrill of my life.
Well, win, lose, or draw, Larry Lombardo, 1976 Pro Stock champion. And we'll see what happens as the meet continues. Dave?
Frank will pick up action in round number 2 of Pro Stock Eliminator. Here's Dave Canners from Auburn Heights, Michigan, in an American Motors Hornet. His competition, Richie Zool in the Chevy Monza, driving the Rare and Morrison car out of Dallas, Texas. Zool himself from Lindenhurst, Long Island, New York. And a close race it is. Dave Canners by a half a car length, 8.80 seconds at 154 miles an hour. Pro Stockers are the true factory hot rods, utilizing gasoline and carbureted engines. Here's the defending world champion, Bob Glidden. His competition, Ken Dondero at the wheel of the Gap and Roush Ford Pinto. Glidden pulling away from Ken Dondero. And by a car length and a half, it is the defending champion, Bob Glidden, with a win in round number 2 of Pro Stock Eliminator. Looking at that one again in slow motion, we see he had a big lead going into the traps. Glidden winning at 8.84 seconds, 153 miles an hour for Bob Glidden. Paul Blevins is in the near lane in the Chevrolet. His competition, the national champion, Wally Booth from Berkeley, Michigan, in the American Motors Hornet. Paul Blevins and Wally Booth very close, and it's Booth by a matter of inches as he defeats Paul Blevins in round number 2. His elapsed time was 8.83 seconds to a losing 8.88 for Paul Blevins, and there you see about a wheel width at the finish line. The final race of round number 2 in Pro Stock, the world champion. You saw him defeat Warren Johnson in round number 1 just a few moments ago. Frank talked with him in the pits. This is Larry Lombardo at the wheel of Bill Jenkins' Chevy Monza from Malvern, Pennsylvania. He already is $15,000 richer, the bonus money going to the world champion. Running against him from Hammond, Indiana, Joe Satmary in another Chevrolet. The final race of this round of Pro Stock Eliminator, Camaro of Joe Satmary, the Chevy Monza of Bill Jenkins, driven by Larry Lombardo. tremendous hole shot, a great driving job again by Larry Lombardo. And it's by an easy car length plus over Joe Satmary at the finish line. Lombardo recording an elapsed time of 8.83 seconds, so he did improve his time considerably over the round number 1 race with Warren Johnson. The losing time for Satmary, 8.87. No, we'll be coming up with the second round of Funny Car Eliminator in just a moment, but right now let's go to Frank in the Hall of Fame restaurant for another look at Ontario Motor Speedway.
Well, I told you earlier why this track was a favorite of the racers, very fast quarter mile. And I also told you that a little bit later we'd be talking about some of the unique aspects of Ontario, some of the plush aspects of Ontario. With me right now to do just that, the former publicity director of the Ontario Motor Speedway and currently the marketing director for the National Hot Rod Association, Brian Tracy. Brian, you were telling me earlier that this plant is so big that you could actually fit a couple of Disneylands in here.
The overall size of Ontario Motor Speedway is 700 acres, but just inside the retaining walls for the 2.5-mile oval could easily fit 2.5 Disneylands right on the ground, right out here where you're looking out the window.
Absolutely incredible. If you were to fill this thing to capacity, just how many spectators would it hold?
It's almost an inestimable number. The permanent seating in Ontario is 85,000. That's in the permanent aluminum-backed seats. Any number of temporary grandstands could be erected. You could go all the way around the back straightaway through the corners with stands as high as you wanted to go. So you could conceivably, if there was an event to warrant it, put 500,000 people in here.
Well, it certainly is the fastest track in the world, and it certainly is the most luxurious track in the world. But there's one or two other aspects to Ontario that are worth seeing. They don't have anything to do with auto racing of any kind, but I'd like to show them to you, and we'll do that a little later in the show.
Right now, let's pick up the racing action, Frank, with the second round of Funny Car Eliminator. Don the Snake Prudhomme from Granada Hills, California, in the far lane in the red, white, and blue Chevy Monza has already cinched the World Championship for 1976, and with that goes $25,000. You know, it's been quite a season for Prudhomme. This being the final event of the year, Frank asked him if he had any thoughts about some time off.
Naturally, during our race season, we really don't have time for that, but we're fixing to take a few months off now and regroup and build some new pieces and maybe even have a little bit of fun, go on a vacation or something.
Against Prudhomme, Jerry Boldenau in the Moby Dick Corvette. And a hole shot for Boldenau, but Prudhomme, with the power that he is noted for, pulling away and taking the win. Jerry Boldenau, a valiant effort at 6.44 seconds. The losing time, his winning time for Prudhomme, 6.14. Ed the Ace McCulloch in the Revolution, the Dodge Sport. His opponent, the Hawaiian Ron Colson of Chicago, Illinois, the driver. Two of the finest funny cars here on the starting line at Ontario Motor Speedway. And up in smoke goes the Hawaiian. Ed the Ace McCulloch having his share of handling problems, but he gets there first at 6.56 seconds, and jubilation in the crew of Ed the Ace McCulloch. His speed just 200 miles an hour, knowing his competition, Ron Colson, far behind. In the far lane, Mickey Thompson's Grand Am Pontiac. Bob Pickett, the driver. In the tower lane, the Showtime Chevrolet of Tom Hoover from Minneapolis, Minnesota. A great race as they pass the Christmas tree. And Pickett moves into the semifinals with a fine 6.24 second elapsed time. His speed 234 miles an hour. Earlier, Prudhomme had recorded in qualifying a speed of 240 miles an hour, the second fastest speed ever for a funny car. Here you see Tom Hoover and Bob Pickett as Pickett pulls away at the finish line with a 2-car length lead. Here the Shady Glen car, Pat Foster, the driver. Somewhat of a surprise, a relatively new car based in Southern California, staying around the Southern California racing scene. His competition, Rick Johnson, driving for Bill Shifsky. Fairtown Shaker, they call it. It's in the far lane as you look at the starting line at Ontario Motor Speedway. Shady Glen and Pat Foster with a bit of a lead and wins the race. And an engine explosion for Rick Johnson. The fire coming out of the car, and there goes the body off the car. The parachute's still out. Rick Johnson driving the car out into the grass, and he brings it to a stop. It's still upright. The rear tire's blown, the front tire's blown, and Rick Johnson is climbing out of the car. You saw it catch on fire. Rick Johnson apparently looks to be A-OK. Taking off his fire suit. There you see Rick Johnson's amazing driving job battling that fire in slow motion. Right now, here's Frank.
What goes through your mind the very second you realize that something like that is going wrong? I mean, was there at any moment when you panicked?
Not really. I mean, I've been through a fire before, and you just do what you think's right. Like, I hit the fire bottles as soon as I saw the flash of fire and saw the body coming off. I tried to keep the car on my side of the track and tried to stop it. The fire got so hot so quick it burnt the brake lines off the car, and I didn't have any brakes. There wasn't anybody in my way down there, so I just took it out in the grass and tried to stop it the best I could.
What happens now with this car?
Well, the body was completely destroyed. It cost about $3,000 to put a body on it. The engine was completely destroyed, and that's $11,000 down the drain. We were going to build a brand new car next month. It kind of looks now like we'll put another body on this car and try and get another motor together for Pomona.
Rick, I want to wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. Need it.
Let's play a little word association game now. I say to you, People's Choice, Hennessy, Mobil 1, and Championship Drag Racing. And you say to me, that's right, Jackie Cooper. Jackie, you're the Grand Marshal for this World Final event, the culminating event on the championship circuit for the NHRA, and drag racing is not just a spectator sport to you, is it?
No, I've been involved, not just as a spectator, but or a grand marshal or a starter, but and a fan. But going clear back to the old Southern California Timing Association days in Muroc Dry Lakes in late 37 and 38, I was driving a little 37 V8 back then.
Jackie, good to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope everybody has a terrific time.
Jackie Cooper.
Frank, very good to see Jackie at the Big O. In addition to the 3 professional categories that we're following here today at the World Finals, there are 5 sportsman categories in competition for World Championship honors. Our coverage of them starts with the final of Stock Eliminator. In the far lane in the Ford Mustang, Scott Main of Aurora, Colorado. And also from Aurora, Colorado is Ron Peters in the near lane in a 75 Dodge. This is handicap racing between cars that are basically stock. Some allowable modifications. One car will get a physical head start over the other as determined by the NHRA index, and you can see it as the Christmas tree begins to count down. Ron Peters leads first, and then comes Scott Main. One thing about it, though, you cannot run quicker than your index, or you can lose the race, even though you get to the finish line first. And it is Ron Peters getting there first, but we told you about the possibility of a breakout, and it happened. Ron Peters turned a 12.64 second elapsed time. His index, which figured his handicap, 12.68. So the winner of Stock Eliminator, Scott Main, with an 11.67 elapsed time for his Ford Mustang at 116 miles an hour. The next step up comes Super Stock Eliminator. And here out of the Southwest is Robert Hutchinson from Arlington, Texas, driving his 55 Chevrolet. His competition from West Helena, Arkansas, a 63 Pontiac station wagon, is Jack Mullins. All types of cars in competition, in stock and super stock, here at the World Finals. Hutchinson gets a head start, and something wrong with Jack Mullins' car, as Robert Hutchinson has an easy time winning the World Championship in Super Stock Eliminator. Hutchinson recording a 13.45 second elapsed time at only 66 miles an hour. The next step up the ladder, Modified Eliminator. Here's Larry Kopp from Baltimore, Maryland. Running against him is Tony Christian from Arlington Heights, Illinois, a pair of Corvettes. The head start to Larry Kopp. The front wheels just bouncing off the ground as the gear changes are made. And your Modified Eliminator World Champion, Larry Kopp, 10.84 seconds. His speed, 106 miles an hour, as he annexes the Modified Eliminator crown. Watching again in slow motion, you can see the front wheels dancing off the pavement as each of the drivers changes the gears, heading down that 1,320-foot-long racing surface. Larry Kopp from Baltimore, Maryland, modified world champion. Here is Competition Eliminator, a widespread potpourri of race cars, dragsters, full-bodied cars, some with superchargers, some running carburetors or injectors. Here's Tony Christian, Wally Jacobson doing the driving. In the near lane, Dean Thompson's dragster from Harvey, Louisiana, driven by Wayne Clapp. A tremendous head start here for Wally Jacobson, and here comes the dragster. He didn't quite catch him, but let's check the times. Again on the index, and he ran too quick. Wally Jacobson running too quick. The win going to Wayne Clapp. A tremendous driving job for Clapp. His index 8.05 for that B dragster, and Wayne Clapp running an exact 8.05. Wally Jacobson, in fact, only 0.06 of a second too quick. The top of the line in Sportsman Racing Pro Comp Eliminator. Here are two dragsters, very much like their Top Fuel brothers, except they run on alcohol instead of nitromethane. Brent Bramley from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. His competition hails from Bakersfield, California. Doug Kerhulis with the Chevrolet-powered car. A pro start, one amber light, then green. Heads up racing all the way to the finish line. Something braking on Doug Kerhulis' car, something braking for Brent Bramley. But Bramley able to coast through the quarter mile. And with that takes home to Calgary, Alberta, Canada, the 1976 World Champion honors in Pro Comp Eliminator. Earlier today, a number of special awards presented. One of the most coveted, the Hot Rod Magazine Manufacturers Cup, presented to Chevrolet, accepting for Chevrolet Robert Stempel, Director of Engineering from Detroit, Michigan. The Best Engineered Car Award presented by Fram goes to Arriero and Smithfield's 1976 Vega Pro Stock, driven by Chuck Smithfield from Laverne, California. And the Best Appearing Pro Crew presented by English Leather, going to Hank Johnson, Al's Auto Supply from Marysville, Washington. And once again, here's Frank, somewhere on Ontario Motor Speedway.
I've talked about the racetrack as the drivers see it. We've showed you how accommodating and luxurious it can be for the spectators. But I've come way back here to show you an aspect of the Ontario Motor Speedway that is unlike any other track anywhere in the world. This may be my favorite part of Ontario, depending on the time of day. It's a beautiful man-made lake, complete with ducks. There are actually two lakes out here at Ontario, and sitting back out here so peaceful and quiet, they kind of underscore the action and excitement going on way up there in the infield. Well, there's one more thing I'd like to show you. And if you think lakes are unique at a drag strip, would you believe sheep? That's right. This is a small herd that grazes out here, bothered not one bit by all the mechanized activity that invades their tranquility from time to time. Well, as the man once said, is this any way to run a railroad or a drag race? It sure is. David?
Frank, that must be the world's cheapest lawnmower. Here we are back into round number 2 of Top Fuel Eliminator. Gentleman Hank Johnson from Marysville, Washington in the near lane. His competitor, James Warren, the Rain for Rent special out of Bakersfield, California. Warren and Coburn, they know him on the West Coast as the Ridge Route Terrors. Some smoke off of Hank Johnson's tires, and James Warren streaking to a win. 5.87 seconds. His speed 233 miles an hour. Certainly good enough to move him into the semifinals. Here's Jerry Ruth in the far lane from Seattle, Washington. Mike Cool's car out of Torrance, California is in the near lane, driven today by Pat Dakin from Dayton, Ohio. Both drivers concentrating on that Christmas tree starting system in an attempt to get just a little bit of an advantage off the starting line that'll put them across the finish line first. Great race from the start, but something going wrong with Pat Dakin's car. Jerry Ruth with the win, 596, 234 miles an hour. Here's the low qualifier, Shirley Muldowney. She's already run 5.77 seconds in qualifying at over 249 miles an hour. John Rodek has got his job cut out for him with that Rodek Chevrolet. Shirley, by the way, not only wants to make it to the winner's circle, but she wants to do it in style.
I hope to be there with that 250 mile per hour record. That's what I came to Ontario for. I'm going to take it back to Michigan.
Shirley Muldowney, John Rodek. And something breaking with John Rodek's car, but Shirley not backing out of it in the least. 5.87 seconds. Her speed, 247.93 miles an hour. And that will give Shirley the choice of lane in the next round, as the driver with the low elapsed time from the preceding round gets the lane choice. Stan Sharoma now, another of the Rodex Chevrolets, against Concord, California's Dennis Baca in the far lane. Baca's Keith Black-powered dragster, winning it at a 599, 231 miles an hour. We'll be back with more racing from the NHRA World Finals in just a moment. We're ready now for the semifinals in each of the three pro categories. That means there's 4 cars remaining. In Top Fuel Eliminator, Shirley Muldowney is pitted against Dennis Baca, while Seattle's Jerry Ruth comes up against James Warren. In Funny Car Eliminator, it's Don Prudhomme against Bob Pickett, driving for Mickey Thompson, and Ed the Ace McCulloch goes against Pat Foster in the Shady Glen car. In Pro Stock, Dave Canners, the American Motors Hornet, against the Ford Pinto of defending world champ Bob Glidden, while right now, let's take a look at Wally Booth and his Hornet against Larry Lombardo and Bill Jenkins' Chevy Monza. Larry Lombardo and Bill Jenkins have been having their share of troubles here, but they have won the World Championship for 1976 based on total points earned throughout the year. Wally Booth, with 3 national victories to his credit thus far this year, definitely the favorite in this race. Let's watch. A great lead by Wally Booth, and it's paying off at the finish line. A big car length victory for Wally Booth. 8.81 seconds to an 8.87, 600ths of a second slower for Larry Lombardo. Here's the other American Motors Hornet, Dave Canners. His competition, Bob Glidden, the defending world champ. Canners with a wheels-up start pulls a slight lead at mid-track over Bob Glidden and holds on for about a car length victory. Elapsed time, 8.77 seconds, so it'll be Dave Canners and Wally Booth in the final of Pro Stock. Here again in slow motion, Dave Canners over Bob Glidden, about a car length at the finish line. Funny Car Eliminator semifinals, Bob Pickett in the near lane driving Mickey Thompson's U.S. Marine car. The favorite on the Snake Prudhomme, the U.S. Army Monza. Smoke off Bob Pickett's car, the tires losing traction, and it's Prudhomme through the finish line first. Once again, winning another race and moving into the finals. In slow motion, let's watch, and you can see as Bob Pickett loses traction right there, has to back out, backpedal a little bit, take his foot off the accelerator, and that's enough to give Prudhomme the win, 6.25 seconds, 220 miles an hour. Ed the Ace McCulloch from Fresno, California, his competition, the Shady Glen car, driven by Pat Foster, a new car in competition on the West Coast, doing very well. Both cars completed their burnouts, now staging. Let's watch. A tremendous blower explosion for Ed McCulloch, and Pat Foster crossing the center line. That will disqualify him, but let's look at Ed McCulloch. He apparently is okay, but the car severely damaged. A tremendous supercharger explosion. As the tree went green, Ed McCulloch hits the gas pedal, and off comes the supercharger. There in slow motion, you see it once again. Foster leaving the line okay, but then crossing a little bit later. Let's watch again in super slow motion. Incredible deformation of the fiberglass body as that heavy supercharger comes up through the windshield, fuel spurting out of the lines, the emergency crew right on the scene. Ed McCulloch winning, but he's going to have a lot of work to do if he can even get the car repaired in time for the finals. Here, semifinal Top Fuel Eliminator. Shirley Muldowney from Mount Clemens, Michigan, has low ET, has top speed of the meet, done a tremendous driving job, every run in eliminations thus far in the 5s. Her competition, the best showing he's made in many a year, Dennis Baca from Concord, California. And Dennis Baca, a lot of oil and a fire for Dennis Baca. But it goes out quickly as Shirley Muldowney crosses the finish line first to put her in the finals of the World Finals. Dennis Baca's car apparently oiling badly off the starting line, and that's what you saw catch fire. Years ago, when the driver used to sit behind the engine, a very hazardous and dangerous situation. But now with Dennis Baca in front, you can see the fire just going out the back, not causing any particular problem for Dennis Baca. It goes out, his parachute will come out and slow very safely as Shirley Muldowney takes the win in Top Fuel Eliminator semifinal action. The next pair for semifinals, Jerry Ruth and James Warren, but apparently problems with both cars. There's Jerry Ruth with the helmet on, walking around. Steve Gibbs, the competition director, checking on Ruth. He's also looking over to James Warren's car. Frank's down in the pits with Ed McCulloch.
Well, David, it's not too uncommon for these people to have to come into the pits and rebuild the engine between runs. Here with McCulloch's car, you see that they've got to be concerned about rebuilding the body itself. When that engine went through the top, you see it destroyed a piece of that windshield. The fiberglass cracked various places on the car. So they're feverishly working on two ends of it. Ed is back there with the engine. They're trying to rebuild the engine. Roland Leong is here. They've got people in and out of the car trying to put it back together again, not really caring what it looks like cosmetically, but simply to get it to where it will function on the line to get into the finals with Prudhomme. They're not quite sure now that all this frenetic activity is going to pay off for them, but they're sure going to try.
Mechanical problems beginning to take their toll here at the World Finals. This semifinal round of Top Fuel between James Warren and Jerry Ruth. Frank, you've been on the starting line. What's going on down there?
Well, two problems. James Warren couldn't get his car fired because of a broken cam drive. Jerry Ruth has magneto problems. I talked to Steve Gibbs, the competition director. He wants to give both cars as much time as is reasonably possible to fire so they could have a race. Shirley Muldowney, on the other hand, talked to Gibbs, and she felt that if neither car could get fired, then she should be declared the winner. She then listened to Gibbs. Gibbs indicated he would give them as much chance as he could, and she would abide by the NHRA decision.
And it seems to have paid off because both cars are getting started, and it looks like we will have a race in this semifinal round of Top Fuel Eliminator between James Warren and Jerry Ruth.
Meantime, Dave, I think I'll head back to the pits and see what's happening with McCulloch and whether he will make it to the finals.
All right, Frank, here's Jerry Ruth from Seattle, Washington. In the far lane, the Ridge Route Terrors from Bakersfield, James Warren, the Rain for Rent Special. The winner of this race to face Shirley Muldowney in the finals. A great run for Jerry Ruth, 593, 241. It's time now for final eliminations in the three professional categories here at the 1976 World Finals. In Top Fuel Eliminator, Shirley Muldowney. You've seen her run 249.30 miles an hour. All of her runs in the 5-second category, speeds over 245 miles an hour, matched against Jerry Ruth. He ran a fine 5-second time in that semifinal round against James Warren. In Funny Car Eliminator, Ed McCulloch has been thrashing hard to get his car back together after exploding the supercharger in the semifinals. He'll be matched against Don Prudhomme, the defending champion. And in Pro Stock, it's an All-American Motors final as Wally Booth, the national champ, goes against Dave Canners. And here is the final, Dave Canners in the Hornet X against the AMC Special of Wally Booth. Booth from Berkeley, Michigan. Wally Booth in the near lane takes it by just about a fender length. Tremendous race. In fact, a quicker elapsed time turned by Dave Canners, but the reaction times of Wally Booth gives him the win at 8.78 seconds at over 154 miles an hour. Wally Booth coming into the finish line right now, just about a half a car length ahead of Dave Canners. Here's Frank at the finish.
We were too far down the end of the line. How did it do coming off the line?
Very, very good. It was an extremely close race. My team partner was the runner-up, and it was going to be close because I think he might have went a couple hundreds quicker than me, but I got there first.
Wally Booth, the winner of the World Finals Pro Stock category 1976 here at Ontario. Dave, back to you.
And here it is, Funny Car Eliminator Finals. Don the Snake Prudhomme, the defending champion. Ed McCulloch's been having a lot of problems getting this car running. Prudhomme has been running for quite some time. McCulloch unable to do a full burnout. They're trying to get the tires hot right now. The starting line crew trying to get him to the starting line as Prudhomme has been running for quite some time. You see the official starter, Buster Couch, motioning Ed the Ace McCulloch to the starting line. Buster telling McCulloch into the line right now. And apparently too much time elapsing. The tree goes green for Don the Snake Prudhomme. He wins the World Finals for the second year in a row. Prudhomme, your funny car champion at 6.09. Frank's down with Don right now.
Congratulations again.
Thank you very much.
You ended the season the way you began the season. You beat McCulloch at Pomona for the Winter Nationals, and you did it again here. How did it happen off the line? There seemed to be some kind of a problem in getting going.
Yeah, apparently McCullough had some troubles. You know, he was plagued all day, and it was just unfortunate that we couldn't make a race out of it. But they told us to fire. I fired, went to the starting line, and McCullough was apparently having problems. And you can't run too long because there's no water in these engines, you know. So therefore, they only have a certain length of time. So he got a red light, and I went on.
You told me you were going to take a little bit of a vacation. This is not a bad way to get it going, is it?
Yeah. Looks like I have a few bucks to do it with. It's kind of nice.
Don, we'll see you next season, and congratulations on a sensational season.
Thank you, and I'd like to thank the Army, too. They've really supported us.
Don Prudhomme, the winner of the 1976 World Finals, funny car category. Dave, back to you.
Frank gets down to one run, top fuel eliminator in the near lane from Seattle, Washington, Jerry Ruth. He had his problems in the semifinal round, a bit of controversy arising over the decision there, but we have a race in the final, and it's Jerry Ruth against Shirley Muldowney, the winner of the Spring Nationals. Jerry Ruth, a former world champion, in the finals against Shirley Muldowney. Shirley has to be considered the favorite. She has low elapsed time and top speed. Let's watch. And something goes wrong with Jerry Ruth's car as Shirley Muldowney streaks to the win. 594, 248 miles an hour. Let's watch in slow motion. It's a close race at this point. Jerry Ruth maybe with a wheel lead, and Shirley Muldowney takes the win. Frank?
You were shooting for 250. You didn't get to 250, but you did win. How do you feel?
Well, warm right now. No, I feel pretty good. Jerry thinks that he had me beat, but I was driving around him. He lost the belt, but I was driving around him.
It got controversial even before you got into the finals, and now that it's hindsight, go through it a little bit with me.
Well, according to the rules, National High Road Association, that once a driver gets one chance and one chance only, and when he or she does not fire, they don't wait a half hour and give him or her another chance. And Steve Gibbs, the tech director, felt that it was fair. It was his decision. He's the man that makes them. And he wanted to make a drag race out of it. And really, with all the people here, I can't really blame him.
It's easy to be a Monday morning quarterback, but it was so beautiful in Columbus. Your feelings now, the season is over and you ended it the way you did.
Yeah, I'm plenty happy. I got a good crew. They're great. They're just great. Hi, son.
One very happy lady, Shirley Muldowney, winner of Top Fuel Eliminator at the 76 World Finals. Frank and I will be back in just a moment. The 1976 NHRA World Finals. Truly an exciting race, Frank. Look just alone at Top Fuel Eliminator. Shirley Muldowney, every run in the 5-second category, her speed's consistently over 243, 245 miles an hour. Quite a lady.
Well, she's proven for once and for all that equality is here to stay in drag racing between men and women. She'll probably get a phone call from Bobby Riggs.
You know, you talk about proving something. Don the Snake Prudhomme proved that it is possible to be consistent in funny car racing throughout the year. In 8 national events, he won 7 of them, was runner-up at the 8, took home that $25,000 bonus money as the world champion, plus about $18,000 today.
He's incredible to me. He has the same kind of quality consistence that a Richard Petty or an A.J. Foyt has.
You know, we're talking about the World Championship. Richard Tharp won the Top Fuel World Champion title. $25,000 going to him, $15,000 to Larry Lombardo, the driver for Bill Jenkins in Pro Stock. Really a great 43-race series.
The entire event today was absolutely marvelous. I thought it was the most exciting race I'd seen and a great way to culminate the season.
Certainly was. In 1976, as Wally Park said, one of the greatest years ever for professional drag racing.
I've got to tell you something, by the way. On my way back up here, I was stopped by a fan from Montana who said to me, "We saw you do the thing with the sheep, and unfortunately, it is not a herd of sheep. It is a flock of sheep." I stand corrected.
Frank, all you had to do was ask. You know, that's it from the World Finals. For Frank Farino, I'm Dave McClellan saying so long from Ontario Motor Speedway.